question to all the panelists here. Recently, we have come across to this incident where the airport roof collapses. So I want to understand how such events have influenced the current airport designs, considering the structural integrity, particularly in regards to safety standards and resilience. We have received a similar question in the Q&A box as well. So let's start with Robbie Lalji. Can we have your inputs?
Well, there have been three incidents recently that I have heard of in India of structural design collapse. One, of course, was at Delhi, Terminal 1. It's a 15-year-old terminal that collapsed. The city side structure over the departure road level, that's what collapsed. I don't know what's happened in Jabalpur and I think Rajkot. But Delhi has been discussed and videographed, and that's been thing. Now, the investigation report, I would just say that there are a number of issues that come up in safety. And amongst the original structural design, I presume that initially people who saw it decided it was a safe structural design. So is it that it was inadequate that somebody has to check? And the second one is it also well maintained? As I said during my presentation, maintenance becomes a major issue. And I'm told by people, and I've seen it myself since I've been through that terminal many a time, there were leakages in the ceiling, etc. So that somehow gives me the feeling that DIAL should take a good look at their maintenance issues, especially when we're getting into steel structures as compared to concrete structures. Of course, concrete structures also tend to leak. People leave out the fact that there are huge roofs which require waterproofing, etc. And therefore, that water, if it goes in, does begin to affect the structure and the steel in it. So that becomes it. But I know of a terminal. I was airport director at one time, many years ago in my childhood. And we had a roof leaking when I climbed up over the false ceiling, which is a wonderful way to cover up all problems. We found an asbestos roof had cracked. The solution was very immediate. Chewing gum and stick it into the holes that was in the asbestos. After that, in the rain, we had people go out and put tarpaulin over that roof. And when it stopped raining and dried up, we changed the roof. So things like that have to be taken, but maintenance is a major issue. Some which are old, as I said, these concrete structures, some of them need to be removed and renewed. In fact, this terminal, the one that we see, is a knocked down version of the old one. In fact, Bombay's Terminal 2, the new terminal, Terminal 2, also is a knockdown of the old one. And that was only built in the 1970s, so hardly 15 years. Also, natural disasters. I remember the Bhuj earthquake. And if you all remember it, 26th of January 2001, can't forget it, on a wonderful day for the country, the Bhuj earthquake, and we had the terminal stuff over the doors collapse. One security guard was killed, others, I think, and then it's to get ready and how to get another one working. So that happens. And so natural disasters, improperly maintained. Unfortunately, in many airports in India, we see water flowing in the terminal building, not in the taps, but on the floors. When there's heavy rain and the drains dry up, or the drains get choked, they don't dry up, they get choked, you get water. And even in Terminal 2, which is otherwise, Terminal 3, which is otherwise a very beautiful terminal, you end up with water on the arrival area. So things like that do become problems, and they require a lot more sort of concentration on what is happening, because when there's water coming in, it affects your conveyor belts. If there's a basement, it affects your basement, etc. So things like that have to be taken care of. So I don't know exactly, Akanksha, as to what happened in Terminal 1 collapse, but I'm waiting for the report. But it could be one of many reasons, or a combination of it. I don't know if Charanjit has any comment on that. Charanjit, would you like to comment on it?
No, I think that, you very rightly said, it is more of operation and maintenance which is required, and that was the perhaps that was the cause, because the rainwater, the very is what it was heavy rain, and the rain was practically, water was practically rushing up, and the pipe was clogged, and the water couldn't go below, and that perhaps made the there was some perhaps maybe joint bolt, maybe some structure thing could have been not to the extent which was required, and it had a cascading effect, and because overloading of with water has a tremendous effect, and water being very a heavy weight, and it created that sort of a casting effect, and that collapsed. But I would rather, I mean, I agree with you that we have a good manual, and perhaps if the maintenance is being looked into more professionally, better every day, we learn from our. Sometimes these mistakes happen, and then we definitely learn and relearn, and we should take some sort of a lesson from this, and within the framework of the construction also, along with that, we need to address more onto the operation and maintenance as well. But there are
Agreed.
systems now, we have complete building management system, other
Yeah.
things are happening, it can be controlled, it can be vision, it can be seen, and some mitigation has to be taken into care, where the automation can also give an alarm to us at various levels, and it can be identified and it can be implemented.
Right. Agreed.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Charanjit ji, for putting it well together. Janvi, would you like to add into what they have just mentioned?
I totally agree with what Charanjit Singh has said today, because yes, what happens when you design any drainage system is like the water should flow continuously. It should not create a pressure. And what happens in Delhi case is like it's accumulated and created a pressure on the structure, and that is the reason I think it's collapsed. And this concerns even okay, what we have to do is like many airport operator now are struggling, because recently, MOPA has also released one circular that every airport has to do a structural stability check. Okay, but my question is like, when we design any structure or any, whether it is airport or anything, we do certain assumptions based on in what context it is designed, whether it is Jaipur or Delhi, it has certain standards. We follow that standards, and accordingly, the structure is designed. When in extreme conditions like a flood or any earthquake and all, sometimes in extreme case we generally don't put that much effort on that. What will happen, we consider as a safe zone key universe, but we cannot over design as well, so that factor is also there. So as panelists said, it's rightly maintenance, yes, maintenance is required. But nowadays, I feel like because of the climatic change, these things are keep on going to happen in futures. And apart from our, all the technical specialists, I think it's like we have to involve somebody who is more environmental specialist who can guide us, like what will be the worst case scenario for a particular region, what kind of a climatic conditions which might have effects on in the future. So that can be your approach, but I'm not sure like how much it is work for when you are actually designing or you're doing the data structural designing of any airport.
Thank you, Janvi.
Janvi,
Yeah.
I'd like to add to Janvi's point. Janvi, is actually, I've been looking at whole airports, and I've been in charge of complete airports. What you're saying is actually one should understand also expands to the terminals. Beyond the terminals into the airports. We have seen shows on TV where water on the aprons of Bombay Airport. If there was a basement there it goes. We've seen Chennai Airport, and these are airports with rivers right next to them. The Adyar River in Chennai has water coming all the up the runway. In Bombay, the river right next, I think it's called the Mithi River for some reason. It's got the foulest smell you can imagine. And the threshold 3.2 gets underwater when that river overflows in heavy rain. So people have to be careful about what to do. And then, of course, it affects the soil, it affects all the hydrology, the geology, etc., all of it. And that has to be studied before we get into the detailed designs. Thank you.
Yes.
Sir, I think I'll add on this again that Chennai, because we did the expansion of the Chennai airport, and between the highways, the roadside, and the terminal building, there is a dip of more than 3 meters, and the runway is very low and on a low profile, and our river's water definitely is rushing up into the runway from there. But we also, recommended and suggested for making the floodgates near the terminal building, because in most of the baggage is in the basement, and if the flood comes and it sometimes rushes into the basement, and the whole equipment gets spoiled. So that is another thing that better it is that we do things before we really get the damage done. So it's like, we have to be conscious that the flood of Adyar River, more or less comes every year, and sometimes, due to the drainage issues, it comes even more. So if possibly these mitigations are taken place appropriately at the time, then we will be avoiding the damage done to the various our other mechanical system. So flood gates was one of the options which we also suggested for making the terminal building absolutely away from the floods. Thank you.
Thank you, all of you, for sharing your expert views. Moving on to my next question. Robilal ji, as you have a vast experience in airport master planning and designing, so how do you approach the challenges when it comes to integrating the latest technological advancements into airport infrastructure and while maintaining the operational efficiency for passengers' comfort?
The latest technologies that are changing life within an airport is really, to my mind, information technology, IT. And it's going to be both by wire as well as by wireless connectivity. And that requires to work with specialist IT people. There are some airports authority I know has very, very good specialist IT people. And I have actually got a list. I had kept it in any case. Some we are all confirmed with CCTV, FIDS, etc. Now we are getting into passes, e-passes. Singapore already has, for regular frequent flyers on international flights, just about every flight in Singapore is international. They're getting into face recognition. You don't have to go and get your stuff stamped and passports, etc. All that is coming up. All those have to go through technologies which will tie in all over. You can go out of your Delhi and come back into Bombay, or go out of Bombay, come back into Chennai, or any of this whole integrated system is not just of the one terminal in one airport. It's for the whole country as a whole. And therefore, the airport operations database, their control rooms are most important. And those are becoming new places. And I imagine Charanjit also would have to take a look at it, and Janvi. These new operational databases and control centers are very important as to how they tie up on their information with air traffic control, with airlines, with customs, with immigration, with everything else at the airport. They become the heart center of the airport. And I would say that is where one should concentrate. Other things also on a much slower scale, but we don't realize how it is, except though Janvi in one of her places said that retail revenue is very high. For example, you've got to provide nodes for TVs and closed circuit television. You've got to provide nodes for advertisements that keep changing. Things like that also have to be taken into account. And those have to be done Wi-Fi's, links to duty-free shops, which he mentioned, that 20% of the people end up spending money in duty-free. So things like that become very, very. You want to be connected to an aero bridge and passenger boarding bridges, because who's come, who's gone, which flight is there. We allow for normally half an hour between a departure and a new arrival, but there can be delays in departure. There can be flights which arrive early. You've got to figure out where to send people, where to do it. You fly in from Washington or New York or something, your flight arrives half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour early. It's happened to me. And where does it go? You didn't have that space open for that particular flight. So that sort of information technology and monitoring systems is going to be, and while I've been in airport operations for a long time, I would say it's not really an architect's job. It had nothing to do with architecture. It had to do with technologies and specialists who came in and with whom we consulted so we could put in the right sort of things. The other thing that's coming up for new technologies is self-check-in. Not just check-in at the air thing, but Bangalore has this place where you can go and get rid of your baggage, etc., boarding pass, everything in the terminal, in Terminal 2. It really is, and it's a big thing, and you have to be a little experienced. Otherwise, for normal passengers, Digi Yatra is good enough to take you through the terminal. But then for security check, for going into the security hold itself, not just into the building, or security hold, but within the security hold into particular security areas, all of these are information driven. To be able to calculate capacities for this and what is the throughput time, etc., is something that architects will have to learn very, very fast. Thank you.
Thank you, Robbie, for sharing your insights on how technological advancements are, helping airports evolve. Moving on to my next question, Mr. Charanjit ji. Your work spans diverse infrastructure projects that includes airports and metros, and they are well known for the sustainable designs. So how do you integrate green architecture principles into such large-scale transit hubs like airports, while maintaining the balance into environmental impact, at the same time keeping the airports operational?
This is like, I would rather say that from micro to micro level, if the basic principle of design, the process is adopted in a proper manner, and you go through a process where you need to see that in the very composite climate, I need to be away from the west hard sun and the shaded south, and get more of the north light, mutual shading, perhaps and then how the envelope is framed out so that less of heat is like minimizing heat gain and maximizing daylight into the building. There are just fundamental basic issues needs to be addressed, and you shape and size of the building is stimulated according to the natural and also the solar oscillation. So if we practically respect the nature and its various features, then accordingly you create a sustainable building which ought to be practically sustainable, and you are conserving your energy. So it's perhaps not that, and I would say that most of the airports, wherever the terminals are, they are either they are practically south faced, and on the south face, when we make a building, then we need a cantilever. Like in Chennai Airport, we made a largest cantilever in any of the aviation building, and the terminal was 80 feet. So when the 80 feet large canopy comes out and you cut the south and southwest sun, the harsh sun doesn't touch the glazing, and your heat gets reduced. So these are fundamentally the physical term, passive ways of development of architect's work, where you practically see and you make a absolutely sustainable building. Beside that, there are tools now. We're talking about active ways, how do double insulating glass, double insulating roofing, calzip roofing, or other roofing, whatever you talk about, the technology plays a very vital role. And then perhaps today we need to create net zero, even sometimes beyond net zero, like Cochin Airport is like totally on the solar, and it is practically off the grid. So practically, these are some of the components which I think we need to realize that if we want to survive, we need to make everything from a larger project to a smaller project as net zero. So perhaps that's the journey of any project. Larger are the bigger, let's see, we concentrate on all this, even the solid waste management. It's like zero liquid waste management. And you practically recirculate, regenerate, energy, get energy out of it. And that is how today the technology is so advanced that you can play with it and create. We will not create that sort of a like PM 2.5 raising to 500 Delhi, and we are a passive smoker, and I smoke 50 days as cigarettes a day. So perhaps if we are as architects, as planners, as technocrats, do all these things in our project, I think we will be giving lot of good facilities to the citizens of the city and the nation. So thank you.
Thank you, sir, for enlightening us with your strategies to implement such fundamental green architecture and airport designs. Moving on to Janvi. Yeah, yes,
I
sir.
just have one comment just to add on to what Charanjit
Sure.
has just talked about, and that is very simple. It's not only happening at airports. Now I'm going back to airports as a whole. Increasing number of airports in India and around the world are switching to vehicles which are not diesel or petrol driven, but electric driven. And therefore, you must have charging stations for all of them all over the airport. That's becoming important. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Coming to Janvi. Janvi, according to you, how would you prioritize striking a balance between structural integrity and aesthetics appeal in your work directing to airport planning and designs? What are your guiding principles?
There are many factors actually we have to consider when we design airport. So when it comes to the basically structure, because airport is a kind of a very dynamic scenario, like sometimes what are the projections or what are the plans you're making to design the airports, by the time you finish the design, the dynamics are changed. So one of the factor which is very important is the modularity and the flexibility in the design, in a structural design, because that really helps for the airport designer to take a decision for all the future kind of effects which is going to have on the development. Because I have seen in my careers, like when I was on the Hyderabad airport, so the dynamics were changed, because every year, like we have to expand, and then every time the latest the traffic is changing. Initially when Jet Airways gone down and all, so there was like not a very much traffic growth. So that time Hyderabad was handling around 12 million the capacity, and by the time it went into 2018, it almost reached to 18 to 20, and then there was like, okay, we have to do the expansion on a very fast basis. But one of the aspects which I really liked about that airport is design on the modular aspects. It's a very modular terminal, and which was very easy to expand. So in terms of decision making for the architecture wise and the static wise, it was very easy to expand the terminal. Obviously, the way the structure was designed, like every 9 meters, a great total design. So it's, that is a very important factors. So robustness of the structure, what kind of material selections which we are going, and obviously the sustainability it's very vast topic, but yes, it's very important nowadays. Net zero energy efficiency, most use of more natural lights, and how we are going to design the facade. And there are lots of elements which actually factors the aestheticsness. Apart from that, I can see in today's scenario, so before COVID happens, in terms of the space planning, the space which we have a certain guidelines. For example, if it is a queuing area, the 1 meter width of the queuing was sufficient, right? And when the COVID came, so this dynamics of the space planning is also changed. Now from the 1 meter, now we are looking for 1.5, 1.8, right? The space which we are looking for, because we have to keep distance when the passengers are standing in a queue. So that highlighted on the most of the space plan, the area of the terminal is increased. Okay, so these kind of factors are very important when we are taking decisions, because for example in Mumbai, which is like the terminal itself is developed in a very constrained environment in terms of the geographical location, in terms of the space it has. So when COVID and also it's very difficult to accommodate these kind of standards in that kind of a scenario. And then there is the factors where which you have to do the structural modifications. Another example I want to give, like recently last year has MOCA has given the circular for every airports that they have to increase their capacity. Okay, and there are lots of modifications that every airport has to do, and because they have changed the standards, what IATA is saying. So that was a huge pressure on the airport operators, that how you're going to accommodate those changes in the operational terminals. It's very difficult task, and that exercise was gone for I think more than 6 months. So these kind of a scenario, it's when comes into picture, so it is very important in terms of the design aesthetic, whether it is aesthetic and all, how the space planning is designed, which all drives the aesthetics. So that is what I believe.
Thank you so much, Janvi, for explaining it so well and giving us a detailed explanation. We'll come back to you again. Meanwhile, Robert, my next question to you. You have been involved in designs of airport across diverse regions like India, Nepal, Tanzania. So could you highlight a project where cultural influence significantly shaped the architectural design, and how did you balance these cultural elements with functional requirements?
Functional requirements, Kansha, are pretty well laid down. There might be a few ups and downs for local conditions, like in Nepal. But of this, I would say at the moment in India, the place to look for, and not just in India, from all over the world, the place to look for is Bangalore for environment and culture. The garden city of Bangalore, as I said, that's one. I mentioned Kona, but we had an interesting exercise in Tanzania. We did 10 airports, 10 expansions and one new. And the interesting thing was the 10 airports were at different places. The one in the hills next to a lake, the others are seashore, some are on the plains. So you had to take into account, and interestingly, they were to serve the same aircraft and about the same volume of traffic. There's some international and domestic mix, but otherwise the same volume of traffic. We had a very interesting time developing a modular design, literally, which could be expanded. Security hold area, check-in area, waiting area, baggage claim. How couldn't the baggage claim be expanded, etc. When we finished, the client said, fine, okay. But what do we do with local cultural things? So some places you had to change from bricks to stone. Other places you had to finish in woodwork, etc. And some places it is possible to put in or required to put in air conditioning. In other places it was not required. So we allowed for the space which then would have some design. The Airports Authority many, many years ago did the Paro Airport in Bhutan, the terminal. The MES did the runway, the Airports Authority of India, AAI, did the Paro Airport. And there it was interesting because from the government of Bhutan, very, very interesting and very, very well done. They brought in to work with our Airports Authority interior designers, from the local temples, the chief monks and senior monks to work on what will be the interior design and the finishes and the paintings that will be designed. Of course, Bangalore has Jatin Das's paintings inside, sculptures, his son's sculptures inside. Delhi, Bombay, they all have tremendous artwork, and other airports also. So this sort of cultural influence does come in. And as I said, one of the best that I've seen, in addition to what I've just seen from Janvi, is also Oslo. Their woodwork on the inside is mind-blowing. And I'm talking of 2008-9 when I was there last. But even then, it was absolutely lovely.
Thank you. That's quite interesting. And you have put it together so well. Coming back to you, Janvi, my next question. What important architectural features, in your opinion, add to the airport building's overall sense of solidity? So how do these factors affect the way passengers feel and how efficiently things operate?
It's very difficult to say which is the important factor, but for me, it's like the external envelope it's driving the space planning. So how you designing that external envelope, which actually create the inside space. And another aspect is the more and more we go into a future planning and based on our past experience. So what I feel like nowadays people like want more openness when they enter to the terminal. So less columns, even if it is a too many elements, even in the interior elements are also creating a kind of anxiety in the passenger. So because airport is driven with the passenger comfort from check-in till they board the plane, it's all how you are creating a comfortable space for them. And one of the always challenge at the airport is the security check area is, and you must have heard the recent, I think it's last year, like there was a kiosk at the security check at Delhi airport because of the space constraint, the queuing and all. So this is a quite like a classic example, and most of the airport face this problem. It's not only Delhi; it's most of the airports face this problem. And one of the way forward is like a technology, how the technology will help to create these kind of more spaces, advanced spaces where passengers queuing time, passenger processing time can be reduced, because that is very important when we are creating any structural element or any interiors, because this it's all about the space, how much space you are giving passengers inside the terminal. And as earlier mentioned by the panelists, like the self-check-in kiosk, or whether it is a DG Yatra, because DG Yatra has reduced your processing time at the entry. Okay, so it has again given more scope for the architects to see into that space, how can they can make it more interesting. Okay, and it's similarly for the check-in area. When SBDs came into picture, there was one challenge, like how you are going to integrate those SBDs into the current system. Like you have a system and now you have to update it. So that is another architectural, I can say this is also a part of architecture features or what we have to see into. Like sometimes what happen is like technology is changing every day. It's not like that you today you are installing something and then tomorrow it goes. Like same change, same thing with the self-check-in kiosk. Today it is there, maybe tomorrow it will not be there. So then that space we have, it will come with something else, because when the SBD comes, obviously self-check-in kiosk will go. So, but the technology is also, it's very important. Like we have to keep updated ourselves, like how this can helps to create a more space inside the airport. So that is what I feel.
Agreed, totally agreed with you. Thank you for sharing your expertise. Charanjit ji, coming to you, could you share a key principle or innovative approach that you have championed and that has significantly influenced the design and functionality of airport terminals?
Design and functionality goes hand in gloves, and I will just narrate one of my first success story of Chennai Airport, when we were in the global competition of creating a terminal building, and we thought how we create the dynamism of some sort of a terminal which gives a language, strong language. So we started with the wings of the bird, and we started looking into the wings and shape out a sort of a form, a design that is like a wings connecting together, and then started looking into the various functionalities simultaneously. So it's like, I would say that the design evolution of the form, you need to complement and supplement the functionality, and they go hand in glove together. You go one step ahead, go two steps backward, and then you evolve. So it's an evolution of design through the parameters of understanding the various functionalities and putting them, engulfing them into the form, and then creating that sort of a iconic dynamism. Because generally what happens, because airports are like gateways to any of the cities, to the nation, to, wherever, it's a walk. It's like effect has to be there. We say that when you enter an airport, you feel something we feel proud of. So these are some of the things, and definitely functionality is the basic. Form cannot be secondary as well. So aesthetic has to be there. So it's not that we make it cosmetic. It can be organism of the evolution of the design, which can make it process into sustainable architecture. So I would rather put it this way, that maybe sometimes it's a mandate from the client that you need to make this aesthetics of this nature, which belongs to this sort of a character. So then you have to follow that. But otherwise, functionality of any of the airport needs invariably has to be, into the norms, into the various other things, so that now, because with the new technology coming like Digi Yatra, other faces, interfacing of all these parameters, sometimes perhaps now the queuing length would be lesser than when half of the people are enjoying and going into the Digi Yatra. So all these things, every time you need to update and see how the new technology is also putting into, not that every time we think that capacity building is there. We say, oh, for the domestic airport I need like thumb rule, we say I need 20 to 24 square meters per passenger, like that's like a thumb rule. But then you need to more understand and evolve into the various things put together and see that how you make it more functional, more effective, more aesthetically binding, and you feel proud of. So my experience to this, that every project gives you a new language, new dimension, new suggestion, new opinions, and you modify, rectify, and again go on. This is what I have learned. When I was doing Chennai, we were more onto technology, empowerment. We use the maximum the technology, where you talk about steel structure, largest cantilever, one of the heaviest pipe bend, all that we use. And now we are thinking that when we're talking about very big complexity, why not make it simplified? And that is what exactly is required to be seen, that you're detailing the interface between the various elements has to be properly done up to avoid damage structurally at a later stage. So that is what I think. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for illustrating your experience so well. My last question to all the panelists here: with this evolving technologies and advancements and innovations happening around, what kind of airport will be able to experience in the coming future? Janvi, can we have your inputs?
In coming future, I can say, like, when we talk about technology, I think in coming future, people, there will not be like a hustle bustle at the airport. So people, maybe there are lots of talks and lots of articles is going that you will do your check-in at home. The airline will come to your home and they will pick your bags, and and it's. I feel like it's in coming future it will be more like a kind of a shopping mall, or maybe it's more about the entertainment zone rather than the transit zone. That I think that terminology will change over the period, because what is happening when in right now also, when we are designing the airport or anything, we always talk about the connecting with city, connecting the local people, because airport is a very secure zone. Like normal people without their tickets, they cannot enter. So what we are planning, like we're planning to create another hub in front of the airport on the land side, where the people can come. So the day by day, it's creating a kind of I can say a close relationship of the city with the international traffic, right? So this changing trend of being a transit hub, I think it will change to a very different perspective. That is what I feel. And obviously all the processes, because currently we see that the airport has more than, I think, 200 kind of a different element. When you have to design, when you have to put your concentration on that, I think that pressure on the airport designer will get reduced. That is what I feel. Thank you.
Thank you, Janvi. Charanjit ji, can we have your inputs?
No, I think I compliment her, and this is what the future is all about: the convenience and Though, it's like these airports are now a necessity, and they're becoming like a way of life. And I think there is so much of, even the traffic which is going onto the air movement is phenomenally rising to like 8% annually. And that is the type of growth which we see. And time is money, time is value. And wherever we need to now understand that the very quality time has to be spent. And if you have a great, good environment, people love to do. And people now today, people love to, chat around and sit at the airport. And I sometimes I don't mind going 2 hours, earlier and going for the international flight than actually having a more of an entertainment at some of the restaurants, at eat out, at sit out, or whatever, or read out. So these are certain things. I think today, previously when it was earlier, there was no place on the hold areas for any commercial activities, initially, and because of the security reasons. Now when I am out of the check-in area, and then I have practically, it's like a big great mall, so it's like creating that sort of a fun area, amusement area, where all sort of recreational areas possibly can be there, and that is the future. And I think that more of, it's like more spending. Today, people love to shop around, love to spend around, and most of the airports like, Jaipur now being developed as a private airport by Adani's, they look for more money. It's like catching up money from people at the airport, and earn the revenue, and that's the mode also to get money out of the passengers more than what you actually spend on your fare. So that I look upon the same sort of a thing which is going to be there in all the airports. Thank
Thank you
you.
for your input, sir.
Yeah.
Ravi, can we have your views too?
I totally agree with both Janvi and Charanjit's views. So I have nothing new to address, except that there are going to be many more airports. Janvi talked about 225. Yes, she's behind times by 1 day. Yesterday, the ministry announced 300. So that is one.
My bad. It's my bad.
So that's going to be another thing. And if you earn so much, may I request Janvi to spend a little more? I go to Jaipur 5-6 times a year, and actually, or in that order, 4 or 5 definitely, maybe 5-6 times. Can you get some more aero bridges, passenger boarding bridges?
We are planning for that. We are
Two
planning
is
for that.
insufficient.
Yes.
You need at
Yeah,
least
I know.
another three.
Yeah.
So things like that. But that's for the comfort. And this is what people are going to look at. But I personally, and this is because I've been going in and out of airports for close to 70 years, starting as a kid. I don't want to spend time in an airport, even though I designed them. I don't want to spend time. I want to be in, out, and gone. And there are other things to do in life. And I don't see an airport as a destination, as Charanjit said. Time to go and have a good time. I can have good times at other places also. But my thinking might still be an old one, that it's a transit place. You need to things where is also going to be transfer of flights from one flight to another. That has to be made procedurally much easier than what it is today. And things like that should come in. And of course, it should be done with comfort. I designed, along with the National Institute of Design, the first plastic bucket seats for airports in 1974-75. I now feel that it's time we got some comfortable bucket seats rather than the ones we have right now. So that would be happily done. But thank you very much. And I wanted to say there's been a good discussion, and I've learned so much, especially from Janvi and Charanjit.
Same here. It's a very good interaction.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, panelists, for such an intriguing discussion. And I'm sure you all have enjoyed it.